This podcast is a member of the King of Wrestling Radio. Go to kowradio.weebly.com for more.
That's the one thing about our audience. They always want a new guy to break through the glass ceiling.
All you have to do is just be real.
Allow me to reintroduce myself. I am the jabroni-beating, pie-eating, trailblazing, eyebrow-raising, talking is done, you're out of your class, no sleep till Brooklyn, the Rock whips your ass. Woo!
I wish you and King would quit talking.
Rowdy Roddy Piper. Later on in this program, I know that you've accepted the challenge of the Tonga Kid, and you're going to be meeting him right here in front of a national television audience. But in the meantime...
He's garbage. He's like where he comes from. Nothing but
Mr.
garbage where he comes from. Same thing with your world's heavyweight champion. You're talking garbage. This guy comes out 280 pounds, and all of a sudden everybody in Boston is standing up and cheering and talking about Hulkamania. Hot Rod walks out, and all of a sudden everybody's booing, thinking Hot Rod ain't going to stand no chance. After all, Hot Rod, he's the only guy. All he's ever done was actually destroy Jimmy Snuka, our legend. All he's ever done is actually destroy Andre the Giant. Unless someone was to sucker me, they could never get an even shot at me. I bounced the world on my little fingertips. And then all of a sudden, Hot Rod goes into Boston, and he becomes victorious. I actually beat the champion, but no, you don't want to give me the belt. No. Let me tell you something, mister. I am the boss. I'm the one that's going back in there for the rematch. Not because I won it. Because the champion wants it. Because I made him look like a fool. They raised my hand. I'm the first man to ever beat the champion. I am the champion. Boston.
Thank you very much, Rowdy Roddy Piper.
I am the true
Stay tuned. More action after this. Take his blood.
Welcome to Around the Ring, episode 28 for today, Monday, August 3rd, 2015. I'm your host, Dave Brown. Thank you for joining us. It's been a heck of a week. You know, in the last few months, wrestling has lost some of its greats, and on Friday, wrestling lost probably its greatest performer never to win a world title. Rowdy Roddy Piper passed away on Friday due to a heart attack, and apparently he died in his sleep, at least according to the last story that I saw. Roddy Piper's influence on professional wrestling is pretty much incalculable. He was part of the first WrestleMania. Hell, he was part of the first Starrcade. How many people out there can say they were part of the first Starrcade and the first WrestleMania? Probably the two most important single events in at least in early modern professional wrestling history. He was there, had memorable matches in both, and Piper's career was an interesting one. A lot of the stuff he was really well known for, a lot of his crazy antics and his early feuds with Hulk Hogan were the things, kind of leading up to that first WrestleMania. You had his feud with Jimmy Snuka. He had all of this early stuff, and admittedly, that was a lot of stuff I unfortunately just missed. It's funny, his career was active. He was a wrestler for many, many, many years, going back into the 70s. And I started watching wrestling sometime shortly after WrestleMania 2. Piper was in WrestleMania 2. He had a boxing match with Mr. T that was honestly pretty forgettable, because it ended with Piper body slamming Mr. T. He had really, at that point, at least from what I had seen, because you got to remember, back in those days, wrestling was very different. You had shows like Superstars and other syndicated shows that basically gave matches, squash matches, and then had promos and promoted upcoming live events. That was the point of the shows, was promoting the live events. And by the time I really started watching, Piper had, well, at least on the shows I was watching, was not being focused on very much. I have gone back and watched a lot of his stuff since then, and he was incredible. He's one of the greatest talkers. We're talking, and I know I mentioned this when Dusty Rhodes passed away, but we're talking, top 5 greatest talkers of all time. And, those 5 would be Ric Flair, The Rock, Dusty Rhodes, and Roddy Piper. Those are the 4 greatest talkers ever to come out of professional wrestling. Those are the guys, and he was extremely talented in that way, because the thing about Roddy is, he wasn't the biggest guy. I mean, not that he was a small dude by any stretch of the means, but he wasn't the biggest guy in the world. He wasn't all buff and jacked up. He was a brawler. He was a scrapper. He was in the ring. He was good, but you weren't watching him in the same way you watched Ricky Steamboat, because Steamboat just had these amazing matches because he was such an incredible worker. Piper was a brawler, and he left an indelible mark. His promos, Piper's Pit with Jimmy Snuka, the very famous Piper's Pit with with Andre the Giant turning on Hulk Hogan. That was a huge deal, and I do remember seeing that. I remember watching that on WWE television. He also spent some time in the NWA, in a lot of various NWA territories around the country. He was very big in the territory system back in the day, going from territory to territory. Interestingly, he never won a world title. As I mentioned before, he's probably, to reiterate, the biggest star in professional wrestling to never win a world title. The biggest titles he ever won, and because I was looking at this today, getting ready for the show, and I found this on his Wikipedia entry, and he won just a truckload of titles, lots of tag team titles, lots of various regional titles, the NWA Mid-Atlantic Heavyweight Championship, which was part of Jim Crockett, the NWA Americas Heavyweight Championship, which was part of Hollywood Wrestling, the Pacific Northwest Heavyweight Championship, which was part of Pacific Northwest Wrestling, another NWA. He won tag team championships in World Class Championship Wrestling, and all of those previously mentioned NWA territories, plus NWA All-Star Wrestling. He won a WWE Tag Team Championship. But the 2 biggest singles titles he ever won was the United States title in the NWA and WCW. He won that 3 times, and he was a 1-time Intercontinental Champion in the WWF, or at the time, now WWE. So those were, those were his big as far as belt accomplishments go. But people often make these kind of trite comments about championships, that the man makes a championship, the championship doesn't make the man. And Roddy Piper didn't need a world title to be a huge star. He went on to do many movies, one of which is the cult classic They Live, which will be forever loved by horror and sci-fi movie fans who love cult classic films. And he just had a hell of a career. He opened a lot of doors, and from everything I've heard, apparently he was also a super nice guy. I never met him. Hell, I've never met really any of these guys. It was a sad day. It was, to me, honestly, when I heard the news, I was at work, and I just happened to be surfing the web for a moment, and I saw this headline from TMZ about Roddy Piper passing away. I was like, holy shit. That was unexpected. The man was 61 years old. He wasn't that old. In fact, he was only 21 years older than I am right now. Actually, probably, depending on when his birthday is, I turned 41 this year, so we could say 21 years. Not that much older than me. And he is gone. as sad as it sounds, with someone like a Dusty Rhodes, he was older. His health was, being the fact that he had been so obese for so many years, it was horrible. It was devastating, but it wasn't quite as shocking. Roddy Piper, other than the fact that in some of his recent appearances places seemed more off kilter than normal. He just seemed, a little imbalanced here and there. Crap, where's I going with this? He didn't seem unhealthy. And, he was never a guy that, from what I understand, popped roids. Because if he was doing steroids, he was doing the wrong kinds, because he never got buff. So with that, it's, death always sucks. It really does. Unexpected death can sometimes be the worst. And it's just sad. He left a huge impression, one of the greatest of all time. He was a WWE Hall of Famer, class of 2005. He has won various awards from the Wrestling Observer newsletter. He won, from Pro Wrestling Illustrated. He was part of Match of the Year from '85, from First WrestleMania. He was the most hated wrestler of the year in '84 and '85. Most inspirational wrestler of the year in '82. Most popular wrestler of the year in '86. Pro Wrestling Illustrated ranked him number 17 of the 500 best singles wrestlers during the PWI years in 2003. The Wrestling Observer newsletter ranked him as the best heel in '84 and '85. Best on interviews in '81, tied with Lou Albano. Best on interviews in '82 and '83. Worst worked match of the year in '86 with Mr. T, the boxing match from WrestleMania. That thing was pretty bad. Worst worked match of the year in 1997 versus Hulk Hogan at Super Brawl 7. And then the Wrestling Observer Newsletter Hall of Fame, class of 1996. He was also inducted into the Professional Wrestling Hall of Fame and Museum in 2007. And, I did see, and I do remember, his feud with Hogan in WCW during the whole NWO thing. And that was a case where Hogan was bringing these guys he never beat. Piper, Ultimate Warrior, and had these matches, and most of them were pretty freaking awful. And always had some screwy ending where he could claim he finally beat them. Now, Piper did get a clean win over Hogan at Starrcade. He put him to sleep, but it ended up not being for the title, which was ridiculous. He should have won that title. I mean, it was a hell of a dusty finish. But it would have been really nice to be able to say he was a world champion. Then again, considering the personality that Piper had, it's kind of fitting that he is the greatest wrestler to never win a world championship. And he will be greatly missed. Thankfully for the fans out there, there's this wonderful thing called the internet. We can find lots of his stuff either online, places like YouTube, or on the WWE Network, if you guys subscribe to that. His matches, all the old pay-per-views, and so much great stuff out there. For people who want to become wrestlers, you should study Roddy Piper promos. He was one of the best ever, and he's going to be very missed. So yeah, that's pretty much that with Roddy Piper. Rest well, Roddy Piper. You will be missed. Thank you for all the years of entertainment and fun that you have given us, and our condolences go out to your family and friends. Heaven's a better place now with you in it. certainly going to be a lot more exciting. Okay, so let's go ahead and switch gears and talk about what went down on the shows this week. We'll go ahead and start off with the WWE main roster. Let's talk about Raw. Raw was in Oklahoma City. I could have gone if I wasn't, broke. I went to a Raw back in, oh my God, it was the mid-90s. I remember the Road Warriors were there. Shawn Michaels was there. We had just nosebleed seats, even though the arena wasn't very full. But it was fun. I went with my my girlfriend, who is now my wife, and her little brother, and it was a lot of fun. This week on Raw, so let's see. The main things really to take away from Raw this week, we had. Well, here, let me just, because I've slept since then, I'm just going to kind of go over some of my notes, and we'll kind of go from there. The Authority opened the show, yawn, announcing that, that SummerSlam was going to be 4 hours. I'm not sure how I feel about SummerSlam being 4 hours. I think I mentioned something about this last week when the news first started to break. If that means we get a whole bunch of 15, 20, 30 plus minute long matches, then I'm okay with that. But they have a hard time filling 3 hours every week on Raw with decent content. So I'm leery of this. We'll see. Hopefully it'll pan out and it won't suck ass. But we'll see. So Rollins is out there with Stephanie and Triple H battling. John Cena came to interrupt, which just made me go, why? Challenged Seth Rollins for a title match for the world title. The Authority was like, well, you haven't earned it, but how about you defend your title tonight against Seth Rollins for the United States Championship as the main event. We also had a match with Dean Ambrose versus The Big Show. Miz was on commentary. Ambrose was super over. Not a terrible match, but it just wasn't anything to write home about. Neville defeated Fandango with an easy win. Stardust interrupted on the Titantron. He had made a couple nice little Dusty references during his promo. And this is still building to eventually a Stardust Stephen Amell from Arrow fame feud, which, I think has potential because Stephen Amell is a great actor and a hell of an athlete. If you've never watched Arrow, it's one of the best shows on TV. And the guy does parkour. The guy is just buffered and buff. And that could be a lot of fun. Plus Stardust, i.e. Cody Rhodes, is a lot better than what they're using him for. Paige had a match with Sasha Banks. There was actually a backstage promo, Paige, Charlotte, and Becky Lynch. And then Sasha Banks, Naomi, and Tamina came out. It was really, really good. I really like that the Divas are getting more time. Since they brought up Charlotte, Becky Lynch, and Sasha Banks, the Divas division really has been getting a lot more focus. They're getting longer matches. They're getting better segments. Paige is doing a lot better now because she's got better things and people to work with. It's just all working out really well. Speaking of, Paige and Sasha Banks had a match. Paige did a great dive off the top rope onto the floor. And then Sasha Banks was mocking Paige. At one point she says, "Whose house is this now?" And then she did the Paige scream and everything. It was just a really, really good match. It was freaking great. There was an audible at one point. It was funny. Paige, I forget exactly what happened, but she slammed Sasha Banks into the mat face first pretty hard, and you could hear her say sorry. It was, which was, I thought was kind of funny. Sasha won with a Banks statement. A really, really good match. Seth Rollins had a backstage interview with Renee Young. He had to talk some trash on Cesaro, and then also talk some trash on John Cena about how people are sick of seeing Cena. That I agree with. Rusev and Summer Rae came out. I couldn't watch that shit because that's just fucking awful. It's just this whole thing with Rusev and Summer Rae and Lana and Dolph Ziggler sucks. And it's sad because Rusev is actually really good in the ring. Summer Rae is fucking awful. She just needs to be let go. She is just awful. Lana is great in her part. And, Dolph Ziggler is one of the best workers in the business. But this whole thing is fucking terrible. Lucha Dragons had a match with Los Matadores. The Primetime Players were out on commentary. At one point, Michael Cole said, hashtag commentary awful, which made me laugh and made me think, well, yes, that's the commentary every week, Michael. The best part of this, though, is the New Day, in the middle of the match, New Day comes out. Xavier and Big E are holding the sign that says, Real Mega Dad of the Year with an arrow pointing down, and they're holding it up, and Kofi Kingston is walking underneath it, and he's doing this just hilarious, skipping clap, and oh my god, it was so funny. And they eventually got into the faces of the Primetime Players. I am really, really enjoying this feud. The things that come on Raw or SmackDown that I always enjoy. New Day, Cesaro, Kevin Owens, now the Divas. I really enjoy those. But especially the two things that really, if they're on, I'm interested, and that's the New Day and Cesaro and Kevin Owens. But especially New Day and Cesaro, they're my two favorites right now. And so yeah, New Day comes out, freaking hilarious. Anytime also the Primetime Players are on commentary, it's great, because Titus O'Neil will make them all look like a bunch of bitches. The match between Lucha Dragons and Los Matadores was pretty good. Lucha Dragons won, and it was... Here's the thing, poor Los Matadores, these two guys are actually really, really good workers, but it's almost impossible to take them seriously. They've been jobbers for so long. So long. They have been the jobber team and have lost to, everybody pretty much. And it's so hard to take them seriously as actual title contenders. But the problem is that roster is so thin right now. You've got the New Day. You've got the Primetime. So these are the tag teams we have on the main roster. New Day, Primetime Players, Lucha Dragons, Los Matadores, and the Ascension. 5 tag teams. Harper and Rowan aren't there anymore because Rowan is out, injured. Cesaro and Kidd aren't there because Tyson Kidd is out, injured. 5 tag teams. Now I would say, hey, let's bring up some tag teams from NXT. But let's think about the number of legitimate tag teams there are in NXT. And I'm not talking about, Dawkins and Fuller and the rest of the scrub jabronis. There are 4 legitimate tag teams in NXT. Cass and Enzo, Blake and Murphy, the Vaudevillains, and Jason Jordan and Chad Gable. Well, do you pilfer those guys for the main roster and leave NXT completely high and dry? Because that's the thing is, and we'll talk about this a little bit later on when we get to NXT, the NXT roster is getting thin. And the WWE is going to need to start signing some people. And, you know, I've got my ideas for some people that should be signed to NXT. And, in fact, sorry, didn't mean to get all quiet. I just thought of something to talk about today. That's not in my notes, which is who the WWE should sign to NXT. We will get to that. And that's going to be completely off the cuff, off the top of my head. So hopefully it won't suck. Oh, and you know, the other thing I will watch, we talked about my favorite things in WWE right now because I knew I was forgetting one. New Day, Cesaro, Kevin Owens, and Bray Wyatt. And that's what we got next. Bray Wyatt and Luke Harper in-ring promo. And honestly, Bray Wyatt's promo had some really poignant social commentary to it. And I even went back this morning and I watched the interview he did with Michael Cole going into Battleground. That was on WWE.com, and it was also pretty poignant. Bray Wyatt is really tapping into things about being a misfit, about being the outcast, that I think can really resonate with people. And also tapping into the whole anyone but you, Roman, is fantastic because it really encapsulates the frustration people have with Roman Reigns. And it's nothing against Roman Reigns, really, per se. It's just the fact that this guy's been shoved down our throat for so long. And by so long, I mean the last year and a half, 2 years, as the next golden boy, as the next winner, that you kind of cringe when you see him to get to that point. And it, you know, it's funny, during the Money in the Bank pay-per-view this year, you know, since WrestleMania, WWE's done a good job with trying to slowly build and repair Roman Reigns. Him not winning the title at WrestleMania was the best thing for his career. He went back down a few notches. He didn't seem like the golden child who's going to be handed everything, so that has been really good. But at Money in the Bank, and people, you know, and audiences have been getting behind him again. Until Money in the Bank, when he was about to grab that briefcase, they turned on him. Like, no, we do not want to see this guy as the world champion. Now, granted, I think had that audience known that their option was then going to be Sheamus, they might not have booed so much. But that's a whole other story. So where was I going with this? Oh, so yeah, this Bray Wyatt Roman Reigns feud I think is fantastic. I really hope they have it go on for quite a while. Because these two, I think, can really bring out the best in each other. And I would love to see the Wyatt family grow. I know there's talk of bringing in Adam Rose, have him revert back to Leo Kruger. I would almost rather see him stay as Adam Rose, or just have him be himself, Ray LaPont, and come in. Well, actually, you can't do Ray LaPont without him being really himself. So maybe go ahead and change him back to Leo Kruger and join the family. And you could do this whole thing where Bray Wyatt says, you became someone you're not. I'm going to tear away what you've become and bring you back to who you were. And then bring him back as Leo Kruger. And then, of course, the other one is Bo Dallas, who I will also watch no matter what. And Bo Dallas makes sense because, you know, obviously he's Bray Wyatt's brother in real life. But it also makes sense in that he could be a great lackey. And the thing with him is you don't change him at all. You don't change his personality. You have him still be that goofy son of a bitch that he is. Perfect member of the Wyatt family. But I'm enjoying the hell out of this feud with Roman Reigns. It's kicked up Reigns' intensity. Reigns is best when he's just being this unbelievable badass, and he's doing that quite well against Bray Wyatt. We then had a tag match, Charlotte and Becky Lynch against Nikki Bella and Alicia Fox. At one point, Nikki did a Tully Blanchard slingshot suplex, which got a nice Tully Blanchard reference from JBL. That was pretty cool to see. Becky Lynch got the submission on Alicia Fox with the disarmer. Charlotte and Becky Lynch make, especially Alicia Fox, look pretty bad. They make these other divas look really bad. Now, to be fair, Nikki Bella has been getting better, and putting her in the ring with people who are obviously much, much better, far more gifted wrestlers than her is going to make her a better performer in the long run. She is doing better, and unlike Brie, who is just really does not have the knack, Nikki still has potential. We get Randy Orton versus Kevin Owens next. Sheamus came out in commentary. Yawn. Kevin Owens did some great mocking of Orton's pose. And then during the match, one of the great things was, Owens says this a lot, he gives Michael Cole nothing but shit. And at one point he's got Orton on the ropes, and he looks right at Michael Cole and says, "You like that, Cole, huh?" It's just... Kevin Owens is a unique talent. He has a way of connecting with people, making you hate him. He has an amazing in-ring ability. He can talk like nobody's business. He's just incredible. And this kind of antagonistic thing he's got going on with Michael Cole is fantastic. Match ended up in a brawl. Sheamus got involved, hit Orton with a bro kick for the disqualification. Cesaro came out. There was a big pop for Cesaro, which was great. There was lots of fighting around. Owens eventually hit Cesaro with a pop-up powerbomb. It was great. And Owens was talking trash on his way back to the ring. This was a really good segment. Randy Orton can go. Randy Orton is a great in-ring talent when he wants to be. And putting him in there with a guy like Kevin Owens is just a no-brainer. So I would love to see these guys, have another match that doesn't end in a fuck finish. It was fun, but this really is continued on the feud between Orton and Sheamus, which no one gives two shits about, and then the really good feud, which is Kevin Owens and Cesaro. Let's see, John Cena did a backstage interview, which was, just John Cena yipping and yapping. Then we had our main event, John Cena versus Seth Rollins for the United States title. I will say, Oklahoma City, my town, loves them some John Cena. Lots of John Cena fans. In fact, there's a girl who comes by the library branch that I work in, and she often sports a John Cena t-shirt. And she went to the event. She said she had a lot of fun. As I saw her one day and I asked about what she thought of this match, and she said she was there and she really enjoyed it. So this was a pretty good match. We've seen John Cena and Seth Rollins have matches before. They actually have a really good chemistry, and they work well together. Seth Rollins is a hell of a talent. He's much better in the ring than John Cena is, I think. And but he's the kind of guy who can get a really great freaking match out of John Cena. And this was a good one. There was the kind of coolest moment was Rollins did a superplex. He did superplex, then transitioned it into a Falcon Arrow, which was awesome. And that's a move that is used by oh God, who is it in Ring of Honor? Bobby Fish. It's a move Bobby Fish uses. And how do I know that? Because that was used this week on Ring of Honor. But we'll get to Ring of Honor later. The main thing with this match is John Cena's nose got fucked up. At one point, Rollins delivered a jumping knee, and it was just so painfully placed. And Cena's nose, and there are pictures of it all over the place, but his nose was, moved to the right a good couple of inches. And you know what? That had to hurt like a mofo. I will give Cena all the credit in the world. He kept going in the match for a while later. Yeah, he eventually won, getting a tap out with the STF. It was one of the best looking STFs I've ever seen. It actually looked relatively painful. This actually made me really happy, this win. And here's why. At Battleground, Kevin Owens tapped out to John Cena's STF. And it was the first time I'd seen a real tap out to that move, really, and since I've been actively following wrestling again. It was a move that Cena would put on during matches, but people would always get out of, and it always looked awful. So when Owens tapped out to it, my whole response was, what the fuck is that? Well, now we've got the world champion tapping out to it. And so, just by default, that, I think, lessens the burn, or takes away some of the damage done to Kevin Owens by that tap-out loss to John Cena. Because if Seth Rollins, world champion, is tapping out to the STF, then just by default, that makes Kevin Owens' loss not look as bad. So that was Raw this week. Overall, not a bad show. John Cena apparently did have to go get emergency surgery to get his nose fixed. He's possibly going to need plastic surgery. There's only one way to put it. His shit got fucked. He got so effed up by Seth Rollins' knee to the face. But he powered through it, and my hat's off to John Cena for doing that, because I would have been crying like a bitch. Not gonna lie. And there, to all the numbnuts online who wish Cena death or legitimate bodily harm, just give it up, man. You guys are like the freaking nutcases who talk politics online and wish horrible things to those they disagree with politically. Let go of the hate. It's not worth it. And don't wish horrible things on people, especially people who are awful. It's one thing, Jeffrey Dahmer. Had you wished a horrible, grotesque death to him? Okay, fine. That's legitimate. John Cena? Not so much. I did watch SmackDown this week, and I watched SmackDown because I saw some pictures that had to do with Cesaro and Seth Rollins and Kevin Owens and Dean Ambrose. So I was like, hey, I gotta check this shit out, man. It's freaking Cesaro, who is the man, and Kevin Owens, who is the man, with Dean Ambrose and Seth Rollins. Hell yeah, sign my fat ass up. So SmackDown was taped in Tulsa. The WWE folks got to spend a good couple days here in the Sooner State. Hope they enjoyed their stay. Excuse me one moment while I get a sip of water. Oh, I am parched this morning. It's very early as of my recording of this. It's now 7:03 Central Time, and we've been babbling on for about, nearly 40 minutes, so good times there. Anywho, SmackDown. Show started out with Cesaro interrupting Seth Rollins in-ring promo. Crowd popped big time for Cesaro. Cesaro then and Rollins had a rematch from last week. Last week they had a fantastic match on SmackDown, and this was a rematch. Kevin Owens came out and joined commentary. Eventually Owens interfered, causing a disqualification. Rollins shoved Owens at one point, saying, "What are you doing?" And Owens like, "I'm kicking this guy's ass. What do you care?" And then they both teamed up double teamed onto Cesaro. before eventually refs came out and broke everything up. That set the stage for the main event. The New Day and the Ascension had an 8-man tag match against Lucha Dragons and Los Matadores. Kofi did his dancing, clapping combo on the way to the ring. It was fantastic. Primetime players were on commentary. It was just really good. New Day is freaking great. It was a lot of fun. I can't even remember who won. Lucha Dragons and Los Matadores. I don't remember how. There was just a lot of miscommunication between the New Day and the Ascension. The Ascension guys, man, they came in probably expecting to make some waves, and they went over like a wet fart. It's kind of sad. But then again, they kind of suck. Sorry, guys. We had a Bray Wyatt backstage promo with Luke Harper. It was fantastic. There was at one point, Kevin Owens was basically leaving. He was walking out with his roller suitcase, and one of the interviewer guys stopped him to ask him a question, and it was like, Kevin Owens said, "Look, I'm leaving." And he said, "You have a match tonight." And Kevin Owens' response is, "Who made the match?" And he said, "The Authority. It's you and Seth Rollins against Cesaro and a partner of Cesaro's choosing." So I said, "Great. Well, whoever's going to be Cesaro's partner is going to regret it." Then later we had a great backstage interview with Cesaro. He was in the locker room listening to music, and he said when he was asked about finding a tag team partner, he said, "You know what? I have a tag team partner who's not here," and he pointed at his Tyson Kidd armband, and he said, "Look, no one in this locker room owes me anything. If someone wants to come out and join the fight, great. If not, fine, I can do it alone." And then the main event, I'm skipping over a lot because there was a lot. I kind of watched half on, half off. SmackDown being the secondary show, and often things that happen there really having no consequence in things that happen on Raw or in pay-per-views. I tend to, I don't take a whole lot of notes. I really watch when I turn on SmackDown. It's because I hear about some match or some people in it that I really like, and I watch it to enjoy it. I took some notes last week and this week because I wanted to talk about these couple of things. So the main event comes around. It's Seth Rollins and Kevin Owens versus Cesaro and a mystery partner. Right as the match is about to begin, Dean Ambrose music hits. Crowd goes apeshit. And they brawl, come out, they have a good match, and eventually it ends with Owens getting he rolls up Kevin Owens for the win. Crowd goes freaking bonkers. There's a great moment where Cesaro jumps out of the ring, stands up on the announcer's desk, and then jumps onto the barricade by the audience, and the crowd is just going nuts. And you can actually, I used a picture of that in the graphic for today's episode. But really freaking good stuff. I'm really glad to see Cesaro getting over. And I'm watching this, and I'm thinking to myself, this is what main events in WWE need to look like. And sure, sometimes these tag matches get old after a while, but this match included all newer guys, newer to WWE at least. These are not your main event mainstays. These are not the guys that have been on TV for 10 years sucking up time. This isn't Randy Orton. This isn't John Cena. This isn't The Big Show. This isn't Kane. Which those four guys were in so many main events in Raw and SmackDown and pay-per-views in the last year. It was disgusting. This is where WWE needs to go. It really is. They need to start really transitioning toward some of the newer talent. And, they've been doing that with Seth Rollins, with all the former Shield guys, Rollins, Reigns, Ambrose. But bringing now Cesaro into the mix, bringing up Kevin Owens, this is really, really good stuff. And there's talk and a lot of stories out there, rumors about Cesaro and his standing in the company being much higher than it was, and how what was it, almost a year ago? Well, a while back when, and I can't remember how long ago it was, when Vince McMahon was on Stone Cold Steve Austin's podcast, and Steve Austin was talking up Cesaro, but said just something wasn't quite there, and McMahon made these just ignorant ass comments about him being Swiss, can't connect with audience. Well, part of the problem was you had him as a shitty heel for a long time, and they didn't know what to do with him. But ever since he started teaming with Tyson Kidd, and they were so freaking good, they started getting these babyface responses. You're now seeing the real money in Cesaro. Cesaro needs to be a babyface because he is fantastic. He does connect with the crowd. Sure, he's not a talker like Roddy Piper or The Rock. He might not even be as smooth a talker as John Cena, and John Cena is really freaking hit or miss. But he's a real guy, and as freakishly strong as he is, as well built as he is, and he's a handsome dude, but he's not this chiseled, perfect handsome like a Randy Orton or a John Cena. So he's a guy who can connect with people, and it's great to see him doing so well. He's one of my absolute favorites. He might be right now, not including guys who are injured, he's probably my favorite wrestler of the moment. So, because, Sami Zayn, Daniel Bryan, those guys aren't on the list because they're all hurt. Cesaro is probably my favorite guy right now. His work in the ring is phenomenal. He's connecting with crowds. Crowds are popping for him big time. And WWE better not screw this up. You have a serious main eventer right here. And that main event picture is so stale. It needs the new blood. Because it just does. There's a handful of guys, and excuse me, God, man, it is early, and we have as fans have gotten real fucking sick and tired of some of these dudes, and Cesaro is a huge breath of fresh air. So yeah, that's kind of that for the WWE. There's there are a couple other things. There was an interview where Kevin Owens had mentioned he would love to put an end to Brock Lesnar. And then there was another rumor that's saying Owens is going to interfere in Lesnar's match with The Undertaker at SummerSlam. Here's my thoughts on this. One, I think a Brock Lesnar Kevin Owens program would be phenomenal. But I don't think the WWE Universe is ready for that. Not that Kevin Owens isn't ready, because Kevin Owens is more than ready to go toe-to-toe with the Beast Incarnate. And just thinking of the promos back and forth between Paul Heyman and Kevin Owens are just I can't wait. But Owens has not been booked to the point where the casual fan can believe that this fat guy from Canada would have any chance against the Beast. So it's going to be a while, probably a few years before he can go against Lesnar. I would love to see maybe around the time of the end of Lesnar's contract, Lesnar go out with a feud against Kevin Owens, and Lesnar do the job to Owens and give Owens that real final push into the main event that he deserves. That would be cool. And then there's also the story of the forces within the WWE that want Kevin Owens to fail, and people like Kevin Dunn, who just don't see Owens as a viable star, and those people are fucking stupid. Kevin Owens, yes, he's a fat guy. He's an attractive dude. He is incredible in the ring. He is amazing on the mic. Sure, he doesn't have a six-pack abs. Who cares? Not everyone needs to. And the whole WWE is kind of changing in the fact that fans have become vocal that they're sick and tired of these prototypes. They're sick and tired of the John Cenas. They're sick and tired of the Randy Ortons. We need something different. And you really saw that with the success of CM Punk, with the success of Daniel Bryan, and you know where Kevin Owens doesn't look like those two guys because he's not small. He doesn't fit the mold, and there's serious money in him. Just look any arena that you see a WWE event, be it NXT, WWE, Raw, SmackDown, whatever. You look across the crowd and see how many Kevin Owens shirts you see. And some cities are more than others. Like I said, Oklahoma City was John Cena country, which is not surprising, really, when I think about it. But you look across these crowds and you see tons of Kevin Owens shirts. There's money in Kevin Owens. And WWE just needs to give it time. One thing that was interesting, the one last thing on the main roster stuff. There was an article on WWE.com that said, Editor's Choice, who will be the next John Cena? And it's a pretty interesting list. It's kind of got your usual suspects. So the list included Dean Ambrose, Roman Reigns, Seth Rollins, Finn Balor, and the one that really stood out to me and kind of shocked me, Sasha Banks. And I think there's serious money in Sasha Banks. Sasha Banks, Charlotte, Becky Lynch, these girls, I think one day are going to be main eventing pay-per-views, main eventing Raws. Because they're so fucking good. And there's going to be serious money in all three of them. Now most of this list, you've got, basically it's the old Shield guys. And Cody Rhodes is also on there. Cody Rhodes, I think there's a lot of money in if they could figure out what the fuck to do with him. And if right now he wants to keep doing Stardust, great. But they really need to figure out what the hell to do with this poor guy. Because it is... his career is not going the way it should, considering how good he is. And that's a freaking crime. I look at this list and I see the one that they really want to be the guy, which is Roman Reigns. I think he is always going to be a huge star, and I think in a lot of ways Roman Reigns and Bray Wyatt are going to be kind of the two big stars in the future. But I also look at a guy like Finn Balor, and I see Finn Balor and I see nothing but dollar signs. His mic skills aren't the greatest in the world. His in-ring ability and his beauty make up for it, though. He is a guy who I could think could be a huge, huge megastar. And really, all of these guys, I think Dean Ambrose is crazy over. There's eventually someday going to be a lot of money in Seth Rollins as a babyface. And, there's a lot of potential in all these people. So, the thing, though, with the WWE, and a big mistake they've made, is for so long, they've tried to have the guy that they want to center everything around. In the 80s, it was Hulk Hogan. And then, Macho Man filled that role for a while, and then they tried to have the Ultimate Warrior fill it, and that didn't work out. And then it was Bret Hart and Shawn Michaels, and then it was Steve Austin and The Rock, and to some extent Triple H. And they've always... The closest they've had to just an era where they had a lot of guys was as much. They'd say the Attitude Era, because you had Triple H, you had The Rock, you had DX, you had The Undertaker, you had all these guys who were huge megastars. But since then, WWE's gone back to what they did back in the 80s. Let's focus everything on one guy, and that has not worked out well for them. For one, there's way too much programming with Monday Night Raw. It's not like back in the day when you had syndicated superstars, and you could get away with Hulk Hogan being champion for 4 years. You just can't do that anymore. And I think it's a really horrible idea to put all your eggs in one basket. Screw that. Let's focus on Dean Ambrose and Roman Reigns and Seth Rollins and Sasha Banks and Finn Balor and Cesaro and Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn, and let's make a main event and a whole roster of stars. Let's have them all be over, and let's have them all be legitimate stars. Why not? That's my piece of advice for WWE today, which I'm sure they will ignore because, one, they will never hear it, and two, if they ever did hear it, they would still ignore it anyway. Let's go ahead and go on to NXT for this week. NXT this week was it was an alright episode. NXT's been floundering a bit lately, and I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that Sami Zayn is injured, Hideo Itami is injured, Kevin Owens and Neville have moved on to the main roster, even though Kevin Owens is still kind of around. And Samoa Joe just hasn't really taken hold yet. So the roster's pretty thin right now. Oh, and also, we can't forget Charlotte, Becky Lynch, and Sasha Banks heading up to the main roster as well. So things feel kind of thin, and there's not a whole clear story going on right now, unlike going into NXT Rival, where you really had the build-up of Sami Zayn and Adrian Neville. We don't really have that now. So this week's episode opened up with Colin Cassidy and Enzo Amore in a match against Scott Dawson and Dash Wilder. Cass and Enzo are amazing, but I think they pissed someone off, because for some crazy fucking reason, Scott Dawson and Dash Wilder got the win. I don't know. These guys are basically jobbers. Why? Whose Wheaties did Enzo and Cass piss in? That's what I want to know. Because I saw that, and the only thing I could think of was, what the fuck? What the fuck? We then had Jason Jordan and Chad Gable in a backstage interview. Those two have a pretty good chemistry. Gable's a pretty funny guy. He's pretty goofy. I'm enjoying him so far. We then had Baron Corbin against Jesse Sorensen, who Jesse Sorensen apparently, I did not realize this until I was listening to Solid Monster. He had been in TNA. He practically died in the ring, and TNA was like, oh, sure, he'll have a job forever. And then was subsequently let go. I don't know. It's unclear whether or not Sorensen has signed an actual deal with WWE, or if he was just in this match to be a squash victim, because it was another squash match for Baron Corbin, and it's getting real freaking boring. The crowd loved Baron Corbin for a while because he has this incredible presence. But at some point, 30-second matches have got to end. And there have been too many, and it's just awful. We then had Tyler Breeze busting into William Regal's office, demanding an opponent for TakeOver. And Regal saying, be careful what you ask for. It's already been revealed that his opponent is going to be Jushin Thunder Liger at TakeOver, which should be a fantastic freaking match. Next up, we had Jason Jordan and Chad Gable against some scrubs. I kind of like this team. They're growing on me. They've got that cool finishing move where Jordan throws a dude up in the air. Gable catches him for a back suplex into a bridge. Yeah, it's fun. We had Dana Brooke and Emma with a backstage interview. This was kind of boring, but so here's something that I really noticed, and I noticed this with this interview, and then later with a Samoa Joe backstage interview. During this, Dana Brooke actually was looking at the camera. Now, for years, WWE's talent has been told, don't look at the camera. Don't talk to the audience directly. Stupid ass thing. And so I don't know if the fact that there are two people in this episode that were looking directly in the camera means anything. I hope it does. I hope this, plus the fact that you see a lot more people directly interacting with the audience at the crowds. I really hope we see this as a move back to allowing the talent to do that kind of thing, because it really does help you connect with these wrestlers if they are looking right at the camera, looking right at you, or yelling and directly interacting with people in the crowd. This interview itself was boring. Dana Brooke is really bland. That's all I can really say about her. She's really bland. We then have a Bull Dempsey video package. And I gotta say, man, I hated Bull Dempsey when he first started. He just, this fat guy in the singlet, it hurts the eyeballs. It's about as good looking as I would look in one of those things, which is scary thought. So I couldn't stand him at first. And then they started doing this thing where he was eating a lot. Go figure, he's a fat guy. And he's turned into this kind of comedy role. And it's freaking brilliant. And in this, he decides that, he's sick of eating so much. And it shows him clips in different workout gear. And he finally decides on one. And then it shows him trying to do these workouts. And it's hilarious. And then it ends with, I guess it's going to be a new catchphrase. It's time to get bull fit. Full Sail University is going to have a field day with that one. I'm really enjoying what they're doing with Bull Dempsey. I think it's going to turn him into a hell of a babyface, and it's going to it's going to save his career, because that guy was dead in the water. We then had Charlotte versus Dana Brooke. One thing about Dana Brooke is she is a very, very pretty young lady, but she did this weird thing with her hair where she platinum bleached it, and I think she's a natural blonde. When she first showed up, she was a more of a traditional blonde, and it looked so much better on her than her current hair. One of the best things she did at one point, she did a cover on Charlotte, and when Charlotte kicked out too, she screamed at the ref, "Count faster," and that cracked me up. And I had a thought during this match that Dana Brooke really reminds me of the kind of divas WWE used to hire, kind of pre-NXT, pre-AJ Lee. And because she's physically fit, she's obviously a hell of an athlete, but she's there because she's pretty. She has, though, actual potential to do well, because she's not, the fact that she's coming from a fitness background, meaning she's an athlete, not a model, she has a whole lot more potential than a lot of the models that they brought in did. Excuse me. So I think she will eventually get better, but right now she bores the utter crap out of me. Charlotte got a win pretty easily. Charlotte just makes Dana Brooke look bad in comparison. But then again, Charlotte makes most of the divas around look bad by comparison, with the exception of, Sasha Banks, Bayley, Becky Lynch, and Paige. So yeah, Charlotte's going to move on to a match with Bayley, which I suspect what's going to happen. This is my guess. Match with Bayley. It's going to be a long match. It's going to be a great match. It should hopefully headline, a main event, an episode of NXT. She's going to job to Bayley, and then she's pretty much main roster bound. Bayley's going to challenge Sasha Banks for the championship, and then at TakeOver, they're going to have a hell of a match, tear the house down, and Bayley will win, become the champion, and Sasha will go and stay in the main roster. That kind of makes sense. And then Bayley's going to get a nice title run, something she deserves. She is such a perfect babyface, and I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be great. We then had Samoa Joe in a backstage interview, and in this, Joe is also looking at the camera, and it really made me wonder if they're changing the whole their philosophy about not looking in the camera. It might just have to do with the fact that Joe's had so much experience and has looked in the camera for so many years that he did it. But that and Dana Brooke, because Dana Brooke isn't going to do anything she's not told to do. So I think they're kind of changing things around, and I think this is a great thing. It's also a good thing in that it really is going to help to make a kind of give NXT its own distinct difference from the main roster. Not that it doesn't already have it, but almost more so. Then we had a William Regal and Kevin Owens backstage thing from last week, where Owens apologized for hitting Regal during the brawl with Finn Balor. We then got absolute shit. Eva Marie in a backstage interview. Eva Marie is everything the WWE used to look for in divas. She is also awful. God fucking awful. I'm sure she's a good person. I'm hoping. Hope she's a decent person. Probably very nice. She is so bad at this. Her interviews are terrible. Oh my God, it's so painful. So that was over quickly, thank God. Let's not even think about it anymore. We then had Kevin Owens versus a scrub. After the match, Owens powerbombed the scrub into the ring apron, then got on the top rope and did the mocked Finn Balor's posing. It's just freaking great. We then had a Rhino vignette, and then we had the main event, the Vaudevillains challenging Blake and Murphy for the tag titles. It was a pretty darn good match, really. Blake and Murphy win after Alexa Bliss caused a distraction, which eventually, I think, went into a roll. I can't remember how the match ended. Specifics of the pin and whatnot. The takeaway, though, is Alexa Bliss was left. The Vaudevillains get pissed, attack Blake and Murphy. Alexa Bliss is the only one left in the ring. The Vaudevillains look like they're about to do something to her, then, being the gentleman that they are, walk over to the ring, hold open the ropes for her to leave. She gets cocky, slaps him in the face, and then they look pissed and eventually walk off. It was pretty good. Actually, I kind of like this, because it builds into this character. The Vaudevillains are supposed to be these throwback guys, and would never hit a girl. So, I like that. What's that phrase? General consensus, or the conventional wisdom, conventional thoughts were that Blake and Murphy would lose the tag team titles to Cass and Enzo at TakeOver Brooklyn. Well, maybe not. I mean, this match with the Vaudevillains really since it had a screwjob ending, to me, it just feels like the beginning of a feud. So maybe at TakeOver they're going to move toward a fatal 4-way or 3-way match for the tag titles with Blake and Murphy, the Vaudevillains, Cass and Enzo, and someone else. That could be really enjoyable. So, my big thing is I really want Cass and Enzo to win the belts in Brooklyn, because that crowd will lose their shit. It'll be great. One last thing before we leave NXT for the week. There was an article on the Bleacher Report this week that was the NXT prospects destined to not to make the main roster. It's a pretty interesting list, and so I just thought I'd go over this a little bit, because honestly I agreed with just about all of it. There was Angelo Dawkins, there was Blake. Murphy was also mentioned in the honorable mention section, as was Aiden English. I think Aiden English and Simon Gotch actually have potential as the vaudevillains on the main roster. And I think Blake and Murphy could too. They're good in the ring. Their problem is they're bland. But if you brought up Blake Murphy and Alexa Bliss to the main roster, I think that could get over. I think that putting her with them, she brings that personality that they need, because they are really good in the ring. So Blake's the one I'm going to really disagree with here. We then have Dash Wilder. Yes, he's a jobber. Marcus Louis, also just, they don't know what the fuck to do with him. And Mojo Rawley. Mojo Rawley, I think, is probably a very nice guy. He is extremely one-dimensional. He's not very good in the ring. He's boring to watch. I kind of hate it when he's on. So there's that. So interesting little article, worth a read. And one thing I thought, and I might give this more thought into next week if I don't like the list I come up with here off the top of my head. But who should the WWE sign to NXT? The NXT roster is getting pretty dang thin right now. So who do I think are the people that, if they could go out and sign anybody, are the people they should sign? I would say I would go with AJ Styles, Adam Cole, the Young Bucks, Angelico, Ricochet, i.e. Prince Puma, and Matt Cross, i.e. Son of Havoc. So again, these are if I was running NXT and knowing that, hey man, our lineup is getting thin and we need to improve this, here are the people I'm going with that I think would be a really strong group of people to kind of take NXT to the next level. And again, AJ Styles for the as the veteran, Adam Cole, the Young Bucks as the tag team, Angelico, Ricochet, and M-Dog Matt Cross, i.e. Son of Havoc. I think if those folks were brought in to the WWE, it would be incredible. Though I would just love to see those guys in the main roster, or not in the main roster. Well, eventually, if WWE ever got their shit together and could have a decent main roster, I would love to see those guys in NXT. God, can you imagine those matches? Shit. Alright, so let's go ahead and move on. And since we mentioned Ricochet, i.e. Prince Puma, and oh boy, what's his name there? Angelico, let's talk about Lucha Underground for this week. Lucha Underground was part 1 of Ultima Lucha, first of the last 2 episodes of potentially the show ever. And it's kind of sucks to think that this could really be the end of it. The show opened up with Dario Cueto going backstage to his cage area with his brother and Black Lotus. Dario saying that his brother did not kill her parents. And this apparently ties into the final scene, and this masked guy who had been training Black Lotus, Dario was basically saying that he's the guy who killed her parents. The final scene kind of also left my head scratching. But, it's good, nice to see that even though there are 2 episodes left that are both very full, and possibly not having a second season, that they still progress the storylines along. The show opened up with the Mac versus Cage in a Falls Count Anywhere match. Quite possibly the best Falls Count Anywhere match I've ever seen. This was just fucking great. There was one moment the Mac hit Cage with an exploder suplex on the bleachers. Oh, that looked like it had to suck. And then at one point, and the crowd just went freaking berserk for this. The Mac, they're outside of the ring. Mac walks back somewhere, comes out with a cooler, smacks Cage across the head with the cooler. The cooler falls, a bunch of beer cans fall out. Mac picks up a couple of beers, looks at them, shrugs, pops them open, slams them together into Cage's face, a la Stone Cold Steve Austin, kicks him in the gut and hits a stunner. And the place goes nuts. Gets a 2 count, and Matt Striker is screaming, "Oh my God, no one kicks out of the stunner. No one gets up from the stunner." It was so fun. It was just a nice little, tip of the hat to Steve Austin. It was so much fun. They went all over the place. Eventually, they ended up in the part of the temple arena area that has, it's kind of a balcony area that has that's right above Dario Cueto's office. They're fighting out there, and there is a couple cinder blocks, and Cage puts Mac's head through one of the cinder blocks in a form of a curb stomp, not like Seth Rollins, a different kind, and then gets 3 count. It was, oh man, it was so good. It was so fucking good. It was so much fun. We then have Son of Havoc, Ivelisse, and Angelico versus the Disciples of Death for the Trios title. Tornado rules, so basically it's everyone in, no DQ, all hell breaks loose. It was a fun match, and of course we had Angelico with his death wish. He was, so when you're looking in the this room arena thing, on one side is Dario Cueto's office, which has a balcony. On the other side is this basically closet that also has a balcony. Angelico ends up being on top of that. He at one point launches himself off of it onto the Disciples of Death on the floor. It was just insane. Eventually, Caitlin? No, what's her name? Katrina. Katrina gets in the ring, holds up that rock that she holds that controls the Disciples of Death and Mil Muertes. Ivelisse gets in the ring, throws her crutches to the side because her leg's still broken, and calls Katrina a bitch. They fight. Eventually, Katrina hits her with the rock, which then allows the Disciples of Death to get the pin and the victory. And then Katrina gives some big-time licks of death. I was very sad to see the change of the titles, but it makes sense. Son of Havoc, Ivelisse, and Angelico are phenomenal together. And you know what? And actually, my list earlier, when I talked about people to bring to NXT, I said, you just bring the 3 of those people. Bring them together as a unit. Son of Havoc, i.e. Matt Cross, Ivelisse, and Angelico. Bring him in. It's gold. We then had the main event, Drago versus Hernandez in a Believers Backlash match. So what this is a match where surrounding the ring are a bunch of fans with belt straps. and they get to beat the shit out of Hernandez or Drago if they come out of the ring. This was a lot of fun. There was a fan to Hernandez who screamed, "Nobody likes you." There was a great moment, a razor's edge over the top rope that Hernandez did to Drago. Drago hits a splash through the table. He eventually wins. Really good. A lot of fun. I can't wait for next week for the rest of Ultima Lucha, and I really hope we get a season 2. Holy crap, we've been doing this for an hour and 20 minutes. Okay, I'm going to kind of go through the Ring of Honor thing pretty quickly because I got to go. I got to take my daughter to a school event this morning. Yes, it's just early August, but luckily for me, I've got some smart kids, and she's in Stuco, so she's got some stuff to do this morning that I got to take her to. So, Ring of Honor, we had the Kingdom with Matt Taven and Michael Bennett versus some scrubs. The best part of this is the crowd chanting, "Let's go Jobbers." Maria joined on commentary. The scrubs got some offense. Kingdom won. Maria on commentary wasn't very good, but the "Let's go Jobbers" chant was amazing. There was a 6-man mayhem match, which I didn't understand at first when I started watching it, but it's basically 6 guys. You can tag someone in and out, or if you get knocked out of the ring, someone else can come into the ring and become the legal man. We had Caprice Coleman, Brutal Bob Evans, Silas Young, Cheeseburger, Moose, and Dalton Castle. Cheeseburger is a tiny guy. Dalton Castle is super over. At one point, he hit Moose, and I've got a picture of this on the graphic for this week's episode, with a standing German suplex, but it was one of those slow standing German suplexes. Kind of hard to describe, but it was freaking incredible. Moose got the win. Super fun match. I enjoyed the hell out of it. The Decade came out for an in-ring promo. Crowd was chanting "Shut the fuck up" to BJ Whitmer. BJ Whitmer is a fucking tool. Can't stand the guy. And apparently he really hates King Steve Corino. He set up a gauntlet match for Colby Corino, who is Steve Corino's kid, against 4 Ring of Honor prospects, all of which who were freaking huge. Corino hit the ring and nearly attacked Whitmer before Nigel McGuinness comes out to break things up. McGuinness joins commentary for the main event, which the main event this week was ACH versus Bobby Fish. Hell of a great match. And at one point, Bobby Fish has ACH on the mat, face first down, and he starts slapping the back of ACH's head. The crowd responded with a chant of "That was rude," followed by "Where's your manners?" Fucking awesome. And that ring, I love crowds like this. The Ring of Honor crowds, the Lucha Underground crowds, the NXT crowds, smart crowds are so much fun. Bobby Fish won after hitting a Super Falcon arrow from the top rope. Lots of fun matches. A lot of fun. This week, really fun episode of Ring of Honor. And something, Ring of Honor really reminds me of kind of their TV show of days gone by, where back in the day, wrestling TV shows were used to promote live events. Nowadays, especially with WWE, and to some extent TNA, live events are used to promote the TV show. Ring of Honor really uses its show to promote the live events, and they do a good job. And this week's episode was just butt tons of fun. I really enjoyed it, and that's gonna do it for us for this week for Around the Ring. Don't forget to check us out on online at aroundtheringok.wordpress.com. You can also follow us on Facebook and Twitter. Around the Ring OK is the handle in both of those locales. You can also check out... no, not check out. You can send us an email. Email us aroundtheringok@gmail.com. And I'd love to hear any comments, questions, suggestions you might have. You can hear us each and every week on Kings of Wrestling Radio, kowradio.weebly.com. Tuesday nights, right after Tough Enough. Check that shit out. It's awesome. Not Tough Enough, because that blows. Kings of Wrestling Radio. That's what's awesome. You can also hear us on K98 Talk, the Spark Radio Network, and of course on our homepage. And that's going to do it for this week. We appreciate you listening in. Hope everyone has a great week. Again, Roddy Piper, rest in peace. Hopefully we won't have to do any more of these episodes where we talk about great folks who have passed away. So in the meantime, like Jerry Springer always says, take care of yourselves and each other.
I have come here to chew bubblegum and kick ass. And I'm all out of bubblegum.
You've been listening to Around the Ring on the Spark Radio Network.
All you have to do is change your point of view. And believe.
Austin 316 says I just whipped your ass. Damn! Woo!
This sucks more than anything that I've ever sucked before.
What? It's for charity.